An ex-soldier helped a lost child find her way home, unaware she was the daughter he never met. The thought had never crossed Marcus Reed's mind as he spotted the small figure huddled against the brick wall of the convenience store, rain pelting down on her thin jacket, her shoulders trembling with each sob. Something about her vulnerability pierced the armor he'd built around himself since returning from Afghanistan 3 years ago. Marcus paused, grocery bag clutched in his left hand, the phantom pain in his right leg flaring, as it always did when rain soaked the city. Other shoppers hurried past, heads down against the downpour, blind to the child's distress. But Marcus couldn't look away. He'd seen too many children in war zones with that same lost look. Eyes wide with fear, shoulders curved inward as if to protect what little remained of their world. Hey there, he said, his voice rougher than intended. He cleared his throat and tried again, crouching down despite the protest of his bad knee. You okay, kiddo? The girl looked up, revealing a face streaked with tears and rain. She couldn't be more than 8 or 9, with dark hair plastered to her forehead and cheeks flushed from crying. Something about her eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, tugged at a memory Marcus couldn't quite place. I'm lost, she whispered, her small voice nearly drowned by the patter of rain. I was with my mom at the farmer's market, and I saw a puppy, and then... Her voice broke, fresh tears welling. I don't know where she is. Marcus glanced around. The Saturday market sprawled 3 blocks away, a maze of stalls and crowds, especially chaotic in the sudden downpour. What's your name? He asked, shifting his weight to ease the throbbing in his knee. Lily, she said, wiping her nose with her sleeve. Lily Morgan. Morgan. The name hit him like a physical blow. 5 years ago, before his final deployment, there had been a Caitlin Morgan in his life, the woman he'd thought might be the one, until the distance and danger of his job had finally broken them. They'd lost touch after a bitter argument where she'd accused him of choosing war over love. He'd never even known where she'd ended up after he deployed. But this couldn't be related. Morgan was a common name. I'm Marcus, he said, pushing the thought away. Want to go back to the market and find your mom? Lily nodded, her small shoulders straightening slightly. She's probably really worried. I bet she is. Marcus extended his hand, then hesitated, suddenly aware of how this might look. A strange man with a scarred face and limping gait, approaching a child. Actually, how about we find a police officer to help? Lily's face crumpled. Please don't. Mom says we should avoid police whenever possible. The statement struck Marcus as odd, but he'd encountered enough people with complicated relationships to authority to understand. Okay then, let's try the market first. If we can't find her, we'll figure something else out. He offered his umbrella, and Lily stepped under it, keeping a cautious distance. As they walked, Marcus noticed she favored her right leg slightly, just as he did with his left. Another coincidence. What does your mom look like? He asked as they approached the bustling market, where vendors were hastily covering their goods against the rain. She's pretty, Lily said in the simple, certain way children describe their parents. Brown hair like mine, but shorter. She's wearing a green jacket today. She paused, then added with unexpected precision, she has a small scar above her right eyebrow from when she fell off a horse when she was 12. Marcus stopped walking so abruptly that Lily bumped into him. That scar. He traced it with his fingertips 100 times, listening to Caitlin tell that exact story. Your mom, he said carefully, his heart suddenly pounding. Is her name Caitlin? Lily's eyes widened. How did you know? Before Marcus could answer, a frantic voice cut through the rain-soaked air. Lily! Oh my God, Lily! And there she was. Caitlin Morgan, barely changed in 5 years, pushing through the crowd, her face a mask of panic that melted into relief at the sight of her daughter. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees on the wet pavement, to pull Lily into a fierce embrace. Don't you ever wander off like that again, she murmured into Lily's hair. I was so scared. I'm sorry, Mom, Lily said, her voice muffled against Caitlin's shoulder. But I found help. This is Marcus. Caitlin looked up, her expression of gratitude freezing into shock as recognition dawned. She rose slowly, one arm still protectively around Lily's shoulders. Marcus, she whispered, his name sounding like both a question and an accusation. Caitlin, he barely trusted himself to speak. 5 years of silence stretched between them, filled now with the steady rhythm of rain on his umbrella. Her eyes darted between him and Lily, and he saw fear there. A specific kind of fear that made his stomach tighten with sudden understanding. Lily looked between them, confusion clear on her face. Do you know each other? We did, Marcus said quietly. A long time ago. Caitlin's face had gone pale. Lily, honey, why don't you wait under that awning for a minute? I need to talk to Marcus. Once Lily was out of earshot, but still within sight, Caitlin turned to him, raindrops catching on her eyelashes. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice tight. I live here now, he answered simply. Move back after discharge. Her eyes flickered to his leg, noticing his slight stance adjustment to ease the pain. Something like guilt crossed her face before hardening into resolve. Thank you for helping her, but we should go. She's mine, isn't she? The words escaped before he could stop them, hanging in the damp air between them. Caitlin didn't answer immediately, and her silence was confirmation enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible above the rain. You were gone. Deployed again, after promising you were done. You chose that life over us. Over you, he corrected quietly. I never knew there was an us. Would it have mattered? Her voice cracked. You were halfway across the world when I found out. Then your unit hit that IED, and they said you might not even walk again. What was I supposed to do? Tell me, he said simply. Let me choose. She looked away toward Lily, who was watching them intently from beneath the awning. She's 8, Caitlin said finally. She was born 7 months after you left. The world seemed to tilt beneath Marcus's feet. 8 years. He'd been a father for 8 years without knowing it. He'd missed first steps, first words, first everything. Does she know about me? He managed to ask. Caitlin shook her head. I told her father was a soldier who died overseas. Her eyes met his, challenging and defensive. It seemed easier than explaining why her father never came looking for us. The accusation stung, but Marcus swallowed his response. I didn't know to look, he said quietly. Rainwater trickled down his neck as they stood in uncomfortable silence. Years of unspoken words crowding between them. She has your eyes, Caitlin finally said, her voice softening slightly. And your stubbornness. God help me. Despite everything, a small smile tugged at Marcus's lips. I noticed she limps a little on her right side. Just like me, she was born with a slight leg length discrepancy. The doctors say she'll probably outgrow it. Caitlin hesitated. What happened to your leg? Afghanistan. The IED you mentioned. 3 of my squad didn't make it. The words came out flat, practiced. He'd learned to recite the facts without letting the images follow. The blinding flash, the screams, the dust mixed with blood. Caitlin's expression softened. I'm sorry. I heard you were injured, but then there was no more news. They patched me up, sent me home. End of story. Except it hadn't been the end. Just the beginning of nightmares, physical therapy, and learning to live with a body and mind that no longer felt entirely his. Lily was growing restless under the awning, shifting from foot to foot, her gaze fixed on them. I should take her home, Caitlin said. She's had enough excitement for one day. Marcus nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of what he might lose, again, if he let them walk away. Can I? He started, then stopped, unsure of his right to ask anything. But Caitlin seemed to understand. She took a deep breath, her eyes searching his face. Why don't you come over for dinner tomorrow? She finally offered. We can have a talk. Figure things out. Relief washed over him. I like that. She gave him her address, an apartment not far from his own modest place, and a time. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Caitlin? What are you going to tell her? She looked back, her expression a complex mixture of emotions he couldn't quite read. The truth, she said simply, or at least the beginning of it. Marcus watched them walk away, Lily's small hand tucked securely in her mother's, occasionally glancing back at him with curious eyes, his daughter's eyes. The thought was so overwhelming that he remained rooted to the spot long after they disappeared from view. Rain soaking through his jacket, the grocery bag heavy and forgotten in his hand. For the first time in years, the constant background noise of his thoughts, memories of explosions, of buddies he couldn't save, of a life interrupted by war, fell silent. In its place was a single, insistent thought. He had a daughter. The next 24 hours passed with excruciating slowness. Marcus cleaned his apartment, though no one would see it. He shaved carefully, wincing at how the years of strain showed in the lines around his eyes. He bought a small stuffed bear, then worried it was too childish, then decided to bring it anyway. By the time he stood outside Caitlin's door, his heart was hammering so hard he was sure they could hear it inside. He raised his hand to knock, then lowered it, then raised it again. Before he could decide, the door swung open. Lily stood there, eyes bright with curiosity. Mom said you were standing out here, she explained. She said you might need a minute because you're nervous. Marcus couldn't help but smile. Your mom always could read me pretty well. Lily stepped back to let him in. The apartment was modest but warm, filled with books and colorful artwork. Some framed prints, but mostly what appeared to be Lily's own creations, proudly displayed. Caitlin emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She'd cut her hair shorter since yesterday, he noticed. It framed her face in a way that made her look both familiar and like a stranger. You came, she said, as if she'd half expected him not to. I said I would. He held up the stuffed bear awkwardly. I brought this for Lily, if that's okay. Lily approached cautiously, taking the bear with a shy smile. Thank you. I have a collection. She studied his face with an intensity that made him want to look away. Mom says you're my dad. The directness of her statement caught him off guard. He glanced at Caitlin, who gave a small nod. I told her this morning, she explained quietly. I thought it would be better than having that conversation with you here. Marcus knelt down, bringing himself to Lily's eye level, ignoring the flare of pain in his bad leg. Yes, he said, his voice rougher than he intended. I am, but I didn't know until yesterday. If I had known, I would have... He stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence without sounding like he was blaming Caitlin. Now, would have what? Lily asked, clutching the bear against her chest. Been here, he finished simply. I would have been here. Lily considered this with a seriousness that seemed beyond her years. Mom said you were a soldier, that you got hurt helping people? Marcus glanced at Caitlin, surprised by the generous framing. That's sort of true. I was in the army. I got hurt and then I came home. Did you kill people? The question was asked with such innocent directness that Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. Lily, Caitlin exclaimed. That's not... It's okay. Marcus interrupted softly. He looked back at Lily, seeing the genuine curiosity in her eyes. Yes, he said honestly. In war, sometimes soldiers have to do that. It's not something I'm proud of or something I like to remember. Lily nodded solemnly. That's why you look sad sometimes, even when you're smiling. Her perception startled him. Children he remembered from his deployment often saw what adults tried to hide. Dinner's ready, Caitlin interjected gently. Why don't we eat and you two can get to know each other a bit? The meal was simple. Pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread, a salad. But to Marcus, who had subsisted on takeout and frozen meals since returning stateside, it was a feast. More than the food, though, it was the normalcy that felt luxurious. The clink of forks, Lily's chatter about school, Caitlin asking about her day. They carefully avoided the more complicated topics, focusing instead on getting acquainted. Marcus learned that Lily loved drawing and hated math, that she wanted to be a veterinarian or maybe an astronaut, and that she had her mother's talent for storytelling. He found himself laughing genuinely for what felt like the first time in years at her dramatic retelling of a classroom mishap involving a science experiment gone wrong. After dinner, while Caitlin cleared the table, Lily shyly asked if he wanted to see her room. It was painted a soft blue, with stars sponged onto the ceiling that he suspected would glow in the dark. Drawings covered one wall, books filled a small bookshelf, and stuffed animals formed a community on her bed. This is where your bear will live, she informed him seriously, placing it in a position of prominence against her pillow. He looks right at home, Marcus said, fighting a sudden tightness in his throat. Lily pulled out a photo album from her nightstand drawer. Mom gave me this today. She said it has pictures of you and her before I was born. Marcus sat gingerly on the edge of the bed as she opened it. There they were, younger versions of themselves, smiling, unaware of what lay ahead. Caitlin with longer hair, him in uniform, both of them caught in candid moments of happiness. You loved her, Lily said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Marcus admitted. Very much. Do you still? The question, so direct and impossible, hung in the air. Before he could formulate a response, Caitlin appeared in the doorway. Bedtime, Lily, she said gently. It's getting late, but we just started talking, Lily protested. And you can talk more another time, Caitlin assured her. If Marcus wants to, I do, he said quickly. Very much. After Lily's bedtime routine, which Marcus observed from a respectful distance, feeling like an intruder in a sacred ritual of toothbrushing and story reading, he and Caitlin found themselves alone in her small living room. She handed him a glass of wine, which he accepted gratefully. She's amazing, he said when the silence had stretched too long. She is, Caitlin agreed, a soft pride in her voice. I've done my best. You've done wonderfully. He took a sip of wine, gathering courage. Caitlin, I need to know. Why didn't you tell me? Really? She sighed, sinking onto the couch, leaving enough space between them to make it clear she wasn't ready for closeness. At first, I was just so angry. You'd promised me that tour would be your last, and then you re-enlisted. We'd made plans, Marcus. I know. He remembered their fight vividly, her tears, his stubborn insistence that he had a duty to his unit. But still, then I found out I was pregnant and you were already gone. I wrote a letter, but I never sent it. I kept thinking about what it would do to you, knowing there was a baby coming while you were in a war zone. I thought it would distract you, maybe get you killed. That wasn't your decision to make, he said quietly. No, she agreed, surprising him. It wasn't. I know that now. She looked down at her wine glass. Then your unit was hit, and the notification officer could only tell me you were severely injured because I wasn't your wife or official next of kin. For weeks, I didn't know if you were dead or alive. I was in Germany, then Walter Reed. It was a long recovery, the understatement of the century. But he couldn't bring himself to describe those dark months of surgeries, pain, and despair. By the time I found out you had survived, Lily was 3 months old. I was sleep-deprived, overwhelmed, and I convinced myself you were better off without us burdening your recovery. She met his eyes directly. I was wrong, Marcus. I know that now, but I can't change it. He absorbed this, trying to process years of misunderstanding and missed opportunities. What do we do now? He finally asked. I don't know, she admitted, but Lily deserves to know her father. And you deserve to know her. I'd like that, he said softly. Very much. We can start slow, Caitlin suggested. Maybe you could take her to the park this weekend? Get to know each other one-on-one? The offer was more than he'd dared hope for. I'd like that. As he prepared to leave, standing awkwardly at the door, Caitlin hesitated, then asked, How are you, really? After everything? The question caught him off guard. Most people asked it casually, expecting the standard fine in response. But Caitlin's eyes held genuine concern. I'm managing, he said honestly. Some days are better than others. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. For what it's worth, I'm glad you found us. Or that Lily found you. Me too, he said, and meant it more than he could express. As he walked back to his apartment through the quiet streets, Marcus felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. It took him several blocks to recognize it as hope, fragile and tentative, but undeniably present. The park was busy that Saturday, filled with families enjoying the spring sunshine. Marcus arrived early, checking and rechecking the meeting spot Caitlin had suggested, suddenly terrified they wouldn't show. But at exactly 10 o'clock, he spotted them. Lily skipping ahead, Caitlin following at a more measured pace. His daughter's face lit up when she saw him, and the simple joy of that recognition made his chest tight. You brought a ball, Lily exclaimed, eyeing the soccer ball he'd purchased specifically for this outing. I thought we could kick it around, he suggested. If you want to. Lily looked to her mother, who nodded encouragingly. I'll be right over there on that bench, Caitlin said, pointing. Have fun, you two. At first, their game was awkward, with Marcus trying too hard not to favor his injured leg and Lily being uncharacteristically shy. But gradually, the simple pleasure of the activity broke through their self-consciousness. Lily's competitive spirit emerged, challenging him to make increasingly difficult shots, laughing when he missed. You're pretty good, he told her, genuinely impressed by her coordination. I play at school, she explained, trapping the ball under her foot with surprising skill. Mom comes to all my games. I'd like to come sometime too, he ventured. If that would be okay. Lily considered this, her head tilted thoughtfully. Do you know anything about soccer? Not much, he admitted. But I can learn. This seemed to satisfy her. She kicked the ball back to him, then asked abruptly, Do you have nightmares? The question startled him. Sometimes, he acknowledged cautiously. Why? I do too. About monsters and getting lost. She shrugged as if this were perfectly ordinary conversation. Mom says everyone has them sometimes. Your mom is right, he said. Even grown-ups. What are yours about? Marcus glanced toward Caitlin, who was watching them from the bench, too far away to hear. They're about things that happened when I was a soldier, he said carefully. Scary things. Lily nodded solemnly. When I have nightmares, Mom lets me have hot chocolate, even if it's the middle of the night. Does anyone make you hot chocolate? The innocent question pierced him. No one made him hot chocolate when he woke gasping from dreams of blood and sand. No one was there to remind him he was safe, that the war was over. "No," he said softly. "I live alone." Lily frowned, clearly finding this unacceptable. "Maybe next time you have a nightmare, you could call us," she suggested. "We could make hot chocolate over the phone." The simple kindness of the offer, so guileless, so pure, made Marcus's throat constrict. "That's a really nice idea," he managed. They played until Lily declared herself starving, and they joined Caitlin on the bench to share the lunch she'd packed. Sitting there in the sunshine, listening to Lily chatter about school and friends, Marcus felt a strange sensation, like a piece of himself that had been missing for years was slowly being restored. As weeks turned into months, these outings became regular fixtures in all their lives. Marcus took Lily to museums and movies, attended her soccer games, learning the rules as promised, and even chaperoned a school field trip when Caitlin couldn't get off work. Each time he discovered new facets of this remarkable child who carried half his DNA but was entirely her own person. He learned that she was fiercely protective of smaller kids at school, that she could be stubbornly independent to the point of frustration, and that she had an uncanny ability to sense when others were sad or hurting. This last quality surfaced unexpectedly one rainy afternoon when he'd agreed to watch her at his apartment while Caitlin attended a work conference. They were building an elaborate fortress out of couch cushions when a car backfired in the street below. The sound, too similar to gunfire, sent Marcus instantly back to Afghanistan. His body reacted before his mind could intervene, dropping him to the floor, breath coming in sharp gasps, sweat breaking out across his forehead. He was vaguely aware of Lily's presence, of her voice asking if he was okay, but couldn't respond. The flashback held him in its grip. Images of the roadside explosion that had killed his friends and shattered his leg overlaying the reality of his living room. Then small warm hands were gripping his. "Look at me," Lily's voice commanded with surprising authority. "You're here with me in your apartment. It was just a car." "Look at me, Dad." It was the first time she'd called him Dad, and the word cut through the fog of memory like a beam of light. He focused on her face, his eyes in a smaller, rounder face filled with concern but not fear. "That's it," she encouraged, mimicking what he realized must be Caitlin's tone when comforting her. "Just breathe. In and out. Like we do in PE when we get a side stitch." Slowly, reality reasserted itself. The flashback receded, leaving him drained but present. Lily kept holding his hands, watching him carefully. "I'm sorry," he said hoarsely. "I didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't," she said with such matter-of-fact confidence that he almost believed her. "Mom says sometimes your brain gets confused and thinks the bad things are happening again, even when they're not." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Your mom told you that?" Lily nodded. "She said it's because you were very brave, but being brave doesn't mean the scary things don't hurt you." The wisdom in those words, Caitlin's words translated through a child's understanding, stunned him. All this time, he thought Caitlin had told Lily only the barest facts about his military service, shielding her from the darker realities. But instead, she'd been preparing Lily to understand him, scars and all. When Caitlin returned that evening, he told her what had happened. "I'm so sorry," she said, genuine concern in her eyes. "Are you okay now?" "I am," he assured her. "Thanks to Lily. And to you." Her brow furrowed in confusion. "Me?" "The things you told her about how my brain gets confused sometimes, about nightmares. You've been preparing her to understand." Caitlin's expression softened. "I wanted her to know the truth in a way she could comprehend. You're her father, Marcus, the good and the difficult parts." "Thank you," he said simply, unable to fully express what that acceptance meant to him. Something shifted between them after that day. The careful distance Caitlin had maintained began to shrink. Their conversations, once limited to logistical discussions about Lily, expanded to include their own lives. He learned about her work as a graphic designer, her struggles as a single mother, the support network of friends she'd built. She learned about his physical therapy practice, where he worked with other veterans, using his own experience to help them rebuild their lives. 6 months after that rainy day encounter at the convenience store, Marcus arrived at their apartment for Lily's birthday dinner to find Caitlin alone, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Lily's spending the night at her friend Emma's house," she explained, taking his jacket. "I thought maybe we could talk." "Just us." His heart quickened. Of course, she'd prepared dinner, his favorite, he realized, the pasta with vodka sauce he'd mentioned loving back when they were together. They ate at her small dining table, the conversation flowing more easily than he would have expected, reminiscing about shared memories and filling in the gaps of their years apart. When Caitlin brought out coffee after dinner, she took a deep breath. "There's something I need to say to you, Marcus. Something I should have said months ago." He tensed, bracing himself. "I'm sorry," she said simply, "for not telling you about Lily, for making a decision that wasn't just mine to make. You missed 8 years of her life because of my choice, and I can never give that back to you." The apology, so direct and unqualified, took him by surprise. He'd been waiting for it, he realized, without being conscious of the need. "Thank you," he said quietly. "That means a lot." "There's more," she continued, meeting his eyes directly. "When you re-enlisted after promising me you wouldn't, I felt betrayed. I convinced myself you'd chosen the army over me, over us. It was easier to be angry than to be terrified every time the phone rang, wondering if it was someone calling to tell me you were dead. I understand that now," he said. "I didn't then. All I knew was that my unit was being deployed, and they needed me. They were my family too." "I know," she acknowledged, "and I should have found a way to tell you about the pregnancy that respected both realities. Your commitment to your unit and your right to know about your child." She hesitated, then added softly, "I've missed you, Marcus. Not just for Lily's sake." The admission hung in the air between them, fragile and significant. "I've missed you too," he confessed. "Every day since I left." Later, he couldn't remember which of them moved first, only that suddenly the distance between them collapsed. Her lips were just as he remembered, soft and determined at once. Her body fit against his, as if the years apart had never happened. Though they both bore new scars, his more visible, hers hidden beneath the surface. When he finally left her apartment in the early morning hours, the promise of a new beginning hummed between them, tentative but real. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the small backyard of the house they now shared, watching as Lily practiced penalty kicks against the makeshift goal he'd built. Her aim had improved dramatically since they'd started practicing together, and her confidence had grown alongside her skill. "Dad," she called. "Watch this one." He smiled at the ease with which she used the word now. "Dad," as natural as breathing. The first time she'd said it had been during his flashback, but she'd continued using it afterward. Initially tentatively, then with increasing confidence as it became clear how much it meant to him. Caitlin emerged from the house carrying a tray with lemonade. The simple gold band on her left hand caught the sunlight, matching the one he wore. Their wedding 3 months ago had been small and perfect, Lily as their flower girl, beaming with pride and joy. "She's getting good," Caitlin remarked, handing him a glass. "She is," he agreed, his chest swelling with the particular pride he'd discovered was unique to parenthood. "Coach says she might make the advanced team next season." Caitlin leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders, still marveling at the rightness of her presence beside him. The nightmares hadn't disappeared entirely, for either of them, but they came less frequently now. On the nights when memories ambushed him in the dark, he no longer faced them alone. "I never thought we'd be here," Caitlin murmured. "After everything." "Neither did I," he admitted, "but I'm grateful every day that we are." As they watched Lily celebrate a particularly impressive goal, Marcus reflected on the unlikely path that had led them here. A lost child, a chance encounter, a truth revealed. These were the elements that had rebuilt what war and misunderstanding had broken apart. His therapist had once told him that healing wasn't about erasing the wounds, but about learning to carry them differently. Looking at his family, the one he'd almost never known, Marcus understood at last what that meant. The scars remained, both physical and emotional, but they no longer defined him. Instead, they were simply part of the story that had brought him home. "Dad," Lily called again. "Your turn to try." With a laugh, he handed his lemonade to Caitlin and limped toward the goal, the old injury protesting but not preventing. As he positioned himself to block Lily's shot, he caught Caitlin's eye over their daughter's head and saw his own contentment reflected there. An ex-soldier had helped a lost child find her way home, unaware she was the daughter he never met. But in the process, he'd found his way home too, to a place he'd never been before, but had been searching for all along.